The algorithm wants a brand. Your soul wants chaos. Have you ever felt like the internet wants you to become one thing, one niche, one identity, one brand that's easy to understand and consume, easy to sell, easy to categorize? I know I sure have. A lot of artists, witches, and multi-passionates know this pressure all too well. We're constantly told to narrow ourselves, to make our work more legible, more consistent, more algorithm friendly. But the truth is, none of us are flat or one dimensional. We're messy, we're intuitive, we're contradictory, we're evolving constantly. And that complexity is exactly where our magic lives. And that is what today's conversation is about. In this episode, I'm speaking with my friend, Colin Frangisetto, a musician, a visual artist, a creative force who has explored different names and identities across his practice, including ADHD, Space Case, Colin Cosmic, Colin of the band Circa Survive, and so much more. Together, we talk about what it means to resist being boxed in, how to create from a place of freedom instead of fear, and how to keep expanding and making whatever art it is you want to make when the system tells you to be small or to be easy to consume or legible. This is really a conversation for anyone who has ever felt too expansive for one label, too strange for one lane, or too alive to fit neatly into a feed. If that's you, I hope that this episode gives you permission to trust your depth, your weirdness, and your own creative path. Hi, welcome, Colin, to Your Art is a Spell. I'm so honored for you to be here. I am, as you know, such a huge fan of your art and of everything that you share online and in many other spaces. And I would just love for you to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about who you're showing up today as.
Hi, Edgar. Thank you so much for having me here. The fandom is very mutual. I feel exactly the same way about your work and you as a person, and I'm just so grateful to be connected. And this feels very much like a full circle moment because we met with me doing this to you.
Right. Right.
This is so that I don't know even know how many years ago that was, but it was a long time ago. I want to say maybe even 7 years ago.
Wow. In a whole different
2019 ish.
world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, many worlds ago. So yeah, it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and see how you operate in the world. And I feel like I've been inspired by you as a friend and as an artist. Thank you. I'm Colin. I am a artist, a musician. I kind of file all these things under artist, but I'll give you all the hyphens. Yeah, artist, musician, writer, editor. I don't know. I do pretty much anything creative that can help me pay the rent, but also express my innermost being. That's kind of my hustle. My hustle is always trying to find things that excite me and fulfill me, and somehow, maybe the spell part is, convincing people that somehow it has value enough for the Scrooge bucks or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think I also go by ADHD. Some people even call me Space Case. That's some weird side effect of the different names on profiles versus handles and all this stuff. I kind of embrace it all. I think as we were like briefly touching on before we hit record, I think it's always something I've had a push and pull with identity in the arts, and even as simple of a thing as the decision to name my solo music project with a moniker rather than use my name. I think initially it was like, oh, I maybe I want it to be a band at some point, but also I think just in general, I'm more there is some type of like license or like there's like freedom that you get with these monikers that I was interested in, always interested in. And I felt that way even like when I first got introduced to like graffiti when I was really young too. Just like having a tagging name or, just anything that gave some veil of anonymity, just taking on a persona. That was always interesting to me. Um, yeah.
I'm curious, what has that made possible to have these little containers or these personas to jump into?
I think in a lot of ways, for me personally, the way it's served me the most is it's given me courage to explore things that perhaps I felt didn't fit some neat, um, you know, box of what I was supposed to be as a creator, or maybe what I was known for. Um, I think there's something I always kind of throw around this term. It's just, it's nothing earth shattering or anything, but I just say like new energy, or like in music specifically, I would say like new band energy,
Yeah.
or it's kind of this idea that the audience. I always want to respect the audience, right? I think the audience is always smarter than most would give them credit for. Yet at the same time, I also have sort of an animosity towards the audience. And maybe it's playful for the most part, but I think the animosity is sort of like twofold. I would say primarily the animosity is towards the marketing entity that the audience sort of, they kind of just succumb to, and they become what we're told they are, right? Which is obviously a lie, right? People are vast and they're sensitive and intelligent, but I think there's something that happens with these funnels of the social media algorithms, these targeting ad campaigns and all this stuff. And even as far back as before that, with like I always was like irritated when I'd go into a record store and see genres, and like, oh, it's so limiting.
Right.
And so I think for me, I've always known that there was this hurdle of like having to get past what people recognized you as. They always are going to want to put you into a box so that they can understand you better. But maybe more cynically, put you in a box so that they can consume you easier. And so for me, I've always wanted to sort of play around with that. And I never saw it as like tricking people, right? And even when I would do things that were pseudonymous, I would never shy away from the truth that it was me, right? But there's something freeing to that. I think that very often, I think people will think they know you, and they will think they know what you make, and they will think that, you know, on one hand, they'll think they've seen or heard it all before, right? And oh, well, that's just that person. They've been there forever doing their thing. And I like it. But it's not the same as something they see that's like, ooh, shiny, new, right? And they have this like, oh my God, right? It's so much harder to get that, oh my God, shiny, new when you're established. And so I think that there was just some type of hack in that where I was like, oh, if I present a new name and just don't even talk about the fact that I have this history, I could get that ooh, shiny new reaction. And with that, there is opportunity to infect in a way that I think sometimes it's harder for us as long standing established identities.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing about the need to create these personas, these shields or facades, right? Especially, I know that a lot of people who listen to this podcast are like multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate.
Oh
And as
yeah.
you said, humans are vast, right? We contain so many multitudes. And I'm wondering about that courage that it took you to go from something known into something new and to also hear those voices or those parts of you that were saying, maybe you're not known in that world, or do
Hmm.
you really, belong here? Like, yeah, like I'm curious about what it took for you to like take that leap in a sense.
um, yeah, I think that it's probably a little bit of devastation, and I think needing a sense of closure in some way, needing something fresh for myself. I think that's usually where it would start, right? But you're right. There is this feeling of, oh, but I've worked so long to be known in this way, be seen in this way. Many people thought I was crazy anytime I would do anything that didn't directly lead back to sort of this resume and this long-standing history, close friends or managers, agents, any people that I would work with. Why wouldn't you use your old band name in this? Or why wouldn't you use your name that all these people know you for? Why not make it easier to figure out who you are? Like all this stuff. And to me, it was always like, no, that's a burden. that's not that's not a that's not the thing that you think it is. And I think for the most part, the burden is really just the creative sort of net, and you just get caught in it. And it's just so much. It's not that you can't expand. You can. Absolutely, you can. But for whatever reason, to me, I don't know. I just had a strong inner voice that was telling me, the best way to do this would be like incrementally over time in these sort of like sneaky, playful games. And in a lot of ways, I mean, if we take the ADHD persona, for instance, kind of exploring digital art just with my regular name for a while led me to just this very simple restriction that was like this lack of curation on Hic Nunc, this platform that we were minting work on. Everything was just this big mess of everything was there. And some part of me just wanted to have a collection. I just wanted to do a very concentrated, very cohesive collection that I didn't really want to be in this big blob of different things. And so it just by default meant you had to start a new wallet. You had to start a new profile. And so that moment, usually being someone who has just like a lot of issues with like, various. So I'm ADHD, so I have like, I'm ADHD, but also have autism. And I would say my ADHD is definitely far more pronounced, and committing to changes, committing to choices is a struggle. On any given day, I'll have 8 bajillion thousand tabs open because I'm like, oh, there's something on this page that I need or that I want to absorb or something, but I'm not ready to close it yet. And then it's like, I'll start another one, and then I'll start another one, and I'll start another one. And so I think I sat open with that new profile page open for weeks, not knowing what I was going to name it. And it was just this frustrating, kind of humorous moment of just realizing that I was struggling with ADHD at the time, and that was what was keeping me. So I just literally just typed ADHD, and to my surprise, no one had claimed it yet. And I was just like, all right,
Wow.
that's it. And from that point on, it was just like one thing led to the next. One choice was like, are you ready to give up this? Are you ready to shed this? Are you ready to shed that? And I, for whatever reason, every little bit of a win that I would have would just give me a little bit more confidence to let go and know that, I think it was just the transience of everything, and just really seeing that, my God, I've been making art for so long, and the only reason any of it ever stays is because I have to choose to catalog it and put it on a page and say, this happened. I made this, you know. If you don't, the sands of time just erase it and or just wash over it, make it harder and harder to find. And I know I'm jumping around a lot, but essentially I feel like this ties back to, you know, existential sort of things. I think in a lot of ways are grasping on this desire to be remembered, this desire to not just disappear. That's something that I've struggled with as a young person deeply, right? Because I also struggled with spirituality and just like this idea of God, of afterlife, of like, you know, I'd ping pong back and forth between like atheist and like ultra spiritualist, like, you know,
Yeah.
for a really long time. And I always wanted to avoid fear being what was guiding my beliefs, right? In that
Yeah.
sense. But it was hard because I think really it's hardwired in us, you know? So I remember just having a pretty sure it was like an LSD experience that afterwards, for whatever reason, it just sort of had dissolved this fear of being forgotten. It it had like literally inversed. So, and it was something I was consciously trying to work on for a long time.
Mm.
But yeah, it was just I had this profound experience, various visions of horror, and also I would say, you know, ecstasy, but really this sort of relief that comes from being annihilated to some degree or sort
Right.
of sent back to the whole. And eventually I started realizing like, oh, there's a lot here that mirrors how I feel about collectivism versus, you know, the individual identity and all this stuff. And yeah, I just started really surrendering to this idea that
Mm.
you cannot you cannot control whether or not you're remembered or how you're remembered. I mean, you might be able to guide it here and there, but ultimately, you know, that's out of your hands. And to sort of hyper obsess on it, it's one thing to play the game and to know that you're gonna do certain things with your web presence, or as artists, we always have to deal with this with our portfolios and our websites and all this stuff. Whatever, it's a game. That's all it is. Um, but just this going beyond that, it can become this compulsive, obsessive thing that I think artists try to manage, like
Yeah.
hyper manage. And so for me, it was like, oh no, I'm going to completely release myself into this idea that none of this matters. And that in a year from now or less, people won't even remember half of these things. And I would even play around with that and post things that I had already posted and see how people would react to it like it was new. And I was like, you already reacted to
Mm.
this 6 months ago. You don't even remember it. And I don't take that personally or like
Yeah.
judge them for that. But that is, there's something about that that's freeing when you start to realize none of this matters. Like we tell ourselves that the things we're going to do have so much weight. They're going to just echo into eternity, and that we have to, you know, for some of us, that's paralyzing to think like that. So for me, this has all been one big like exercise of like surrender into the disintegration of the self, and to know that it's all just temporary. All the stuff we're doing here, you don't have to take it so seriously. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's sacred comedy, really.
Yeah, and that liberation that you're naming, that feeling of freedom and flow, I can really see it echoed in the work that you've been making. I've been
Thank you.
in awe of your generativity, like how much you've been able to make in the last few years, and the layers, the density, the complexity of your art. I'd love to hear you speak a little bit about your artwork that you've been making as ADHD, and also if you could speak a little bit about the process that you go through when you're making the work.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I feel the same way about you, by the way. You are extremely prolific, and it's always amazing to me to go on your site and just scroll through everything that you've made and realize that this stuff is not only is it's hard work because there's deep concepts there at all times and everything is relating, but there's also just this, it's so natural. Everything about it just feels like it's flowing out of you. Like you just touch something and it appears like that. That's the way obviously I know it.
I'm
That
glad
is
it
not,
feels, appears that way to you.
yeah. Well, that's the trick, right? Like that's what we almost hope that like, we're so in tune with our essence as artists that it starts to feel that way to others when they look at it. And I really do get that from your work, in all
Thank
of its
you.
different forms and dimensions. And I think that that's been, essentially, I wouldn't say it's like this primary objective that I obsess on, but it is something that subconsciously I'm going for. I don't want to create processes that are difficult on purpose just to kind of flex technicality or anything like that. I'm always trying to make my process more streamlined, and how do I get to the part where I'm making the decisions and really, um I don't know. I've kind of pinpointed like these are like the pivotal moments in my works that are gratifying, and this stuff is the grueling part. And how do I make this a little bit easier? I'm speaking mostly about my hyper layered like collage works. With digital painting, that's different. I would say that I've kind of always had a pretty streamlined process with that. It's like you pick a few brushes, you make a few brushes, you have your palettes, and then that to me is more like meditation or something, at least for abstract painting. I mean, abstract painting to me is just this, it is so innately gratifying for me that it's almost like makes me feel guilty because
Yeah.
I'm like, to me, this is just like, this is heaven. This is like, you know, yeah, just nonverbal, like, again, like this dissolving of the self. But when it comes to, I've been sort of fixated on collage for, probably the last 4 years ish, maybe more, maybe 5 years. And that's been this mostly a process of cataloging, constantly taking screenshots, constantly saving things and archiving them and creating these many, many folders of images, text, videos, pretty much just anything that makes me feel something when I look at it. Even if I don't know what it makes me feel, it's like I'll get a little ping, like, this is something. You should have this. And so I am sort of a bit of a digital hoarder in that sense. Probably about like 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I started a series called Inset that was very focused on quite literally what I was taking in on my devices. So every day it was like I wasn't any longer going out and searching for material. I was literally like, my regular behavior on the internet was that was the material I was taking. And so I wanted to basically make works that were, if you flattened time and just took all of the things that were hitting my eyeballs over the course, of 6 to 12 months or whatever, and then you put it on a surface and just vomited it all right there. That was what the initial sort of background would start as, this multi-layered, all of these source images. And then what I would do is sort of, I guess you could say is, someone used the word excavation. I feel like that's becoming some like normal art speak or something, but like to me, like it's quite apt because it would feel like I was excavating the work that already existed somehow, because intuitively I would start to chip away at these layers and find what was supposed to be there. And it was never like, oh, there's a rabbit, delete background rabbit. As much as that, I have actually gotten interested in doing that too. But for this
Hmm.
series, it was specifically about trying to allow abstraction to play a role in this. So in a way, I was starting to use the layers like the layers of images were being used almost like paint in a way.
Hmm.
I was trying to let them like their shapes guide me. And I was always astounded by the end result would always seem so much more intentional and so much more planned out than they were. Just like so much more, like eerily. And I think at this point, I've come to just accept retrocausality and accept that time does not exist the way we think it does.
Yeah.
And so when you accept that, um, what that really means is sort of having a trust. And again, I think what accepting that kind of there's a at least somewhat you are accepting determinism to some extent. You're sort of acknowledging that some part of this is already in existence, some part of this is predetermined. I wouldn't say I believe all of it is. I do believe that there is free will as well. There's like this weird push and pull. But I think the anxiety that we get in our decision making as artists is related to this distrust of determinism, right? So like we think everything's free will. I think it's all us. And once I let go of that, I think everything, I could find a flow in my work that it was like what I was always looking for. Like, but I would just get in the way of it because I was just trying to dominate the work so much with my free will and just constantly everything that was, I think when I was younger, just everything that was good about my work, I would over edit and over shape it. This is kind of like what we were getting at earlier. This like,
Hmm.
you know, sort of this pressure to just constantly be chiseling your aesthetic into this very narrow, this is what I am. And yeah, so over the probably because of, embracing this ADHD moniker and just more and more so playing with the idea of I don't have to be one thing, I don't have to just do this, and then a little bit of just the environment at large being incoherent. And I think people more and more so seeing creators as multidimensional. And yeah, despite our systems, I think fighting against that, I think the audience actually has updated itself in this way. I think they
Yeah.
do come to expect a much wider universe. So so yeah, I think that's really it's been interesting to just really release myself again into this trust that the work already exists in some sense and that I'm just discovering it. I'm just here. I just need to really turn off my conscious brain, let my subconscious drive it. And goddamn, the subconscious is just so much more wise than me. I mean, like so much more wise than my conscious mind. I mean, I'm just always astounded. I'm like, wow, I just need to let you drive. Like, yeah.
Right. How can we quiet that other part of the brain to just allow it to do its own thing? And I love the word trust and excavation, surrender. Like these are all technologies, tools, perspectives that artists could really benefit from, especially when you do get caught up in that either fear, uncertainty, unknown, that does stop that flow and being able to enter into that flow. And it's interesting because I also very much resonate with what you said around abstract work where there is this really easy, like it's almost, I almost like felt like I needed permission a lot of like,
Yes.
am I allowed to do this? This is so much fun. Like, so I totally get that. But I wanted to ask you, like, what are some things that you maybe are excited about that are coming up in your world that you want to share with folks? And I also know that you have a very active Patreon community. I'd love for you to also tell folks about that too.
Sure. Um, I am, like so right now I have like a handful of projects going. I guess that's kind of usual, but I've been sort of in a holding pattern, I would say, with visual art, at least in terms of like releasing. I think yeah, I just go through these periods of time I think where the I struggle with I struggle with formality and sort of capitalism. I struggle with the modes that it pushes us into. And yeah, I think so I've been making a lot and really, I kind of see it as or I call it research mode. Research mode for me is just testing things, experimenting. Sometimes it's just I also have a thing that I say like input output mode. I'll go through these heavy phases of input mode where I'm just watching films, reading books, kind of going on archiving rampages where I'm just saving things and even, oh, God forbid, organizing things. But so, so yeah, I think I'm getting closer and closer to, releasing some collections out there. I've also been moving out of my studio space because I just can't rationalize spending the money for it anymore. And so I'm building a little studio space in my basement. I also have an office, so it's not a tragedy by any means. I am gonna like miss that space a little bit, but again, this is like making room for new things, right? Uh, Letting go of that. Uh, Eventually, there'll be another opportunity for a studio space if I want one. Or I might just get so attached to working here that I don't need one. But yeah, so while doing that, I've been going through a lot of my older like physical works and kind of like revisiting a lot of my earlier phases that um it's interesting, like as I continue to progress in my digital work and in the ADHD realm, I start to see more and more parts of my other self coming closer to I'm like, oh, they're bending towards each other. Or I guess I'm bending them towards each other. Am I?
Mm.
And so that's been interesting. Yeah, I've been playing more and more with physical works again, feeling strange compulsions to paint figurative things again. I'm like, do I really want to do that? I don't know. Um, you know, um, but again, I think this is like when I start to feel that resistance, like, oh, that doesn't belong there. I'm like, it might actually. um, That might actually be exactly what needs to happen. But I think probably right now, what's on the top of my mind is that my band, Circa Survive, we sort of like had this long period where we weren't really sure if we were a band anymore. We announced that we broke up. Well, actually, we announced a hiatus and then we broke up. And that's sort of like the, very like, this is the traditional path that happens for a lot of bands. I have to say, even me being the cynical, like, person I am when it comes to music and the industry and just like these types of histories, I really didn't think we'd get back together. I didn't think it would happen. But I'm also one of these people that I don't close myself off to things, and I have my, kind of lines in the sand for what is important for me in order to do certain things. And for me, the line in the sand was really like friendship mending, like that was first and foremost. And once that occurred and everybody felt
Mm.
really just in a good place in terms of just like being friends again, communicating in a normal way, a few things popped up and our manager just kind of presented us these opportunities. And I think it was just like, okay, all right, well, let's give it a shot. So we're playing a few shows together again later in this year in the fall. And we really have no idea if it'll continue past that, but I'm looking forward to that because it's going to be a reset. It'll break me out of my normal routine, force me to perform again, which performing for me is very like, um, I would say, complicated relationship with it, but it always produces interesting things internally for me. And then I take that and kind of bring it into my visual art practice. So I'm looking forward to that. I think also there is a certain catharsis that comes with playing loud music with a crowd that knows it. It's very spiritual. It just really
Yeah.
is. It's the closest thing for me. It's the closest thing to church that I've ever experienced, really,
Yeah.
and so I'm really looking forward to that. Um, and then beyond that, I've just been, you know, trying to find a sense of stability again financially, just so that I'm really just craving um fun time with with my partner and our animals. And I just lost a companion, as you know, and RIP Benny, my boy.
Yeah.
But every time I lose a companion, it just makes me want to carve out more time, both with the humans that are really important to me and the animals that are really important to me. Because I mean, it's not easy when you're a full-time artist, because you're just constantly grinding and you're constantly just trying not to fall off the surfboard, and keep the bills paid, and really just ultimately keep your freedom, because you don't want to have to
Right.
succumb to basically what for me would really make art making really difficult if I had to go get a full-time job. It's just kind of out of the question. I mean, my mind would fail. I would. There's just no way I'd be able to do it. Many bad things would happen if that happened. So, you know, I'm no stranger to hard work and hustle and all that. But I am looking forward to just having a little more breathing room, a little more like space to create some new visions for what the next few years will look like as we navigate the American hellscape.
Right.
Oh yeah, Patreon. Patreon.com/Colin Cosmic. That was born out of when I was doing the podcast that you were so kind to be on, the Cosmic Nod, which
Yeah.
is basically defunct now, but at the same time I have been feeling a pull towards podcasting again, and just making, I'm kind of intrigued by maybe making documentaries, or
Mm.
I definitely want to play more with the video medium. I've also just been like recording myself, like this is I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with this yet, but I've basically been like on this app, like recording myself scrolling through Instagram and just commenting, because God, it is just that shit over there. And there is just so much stuff
Oh my
that
God, I
has.
would love to watch this.
Oh, see, my basic idea now is like, I think I should just like do this, but just pull a different person in every time, and we just go through it together and just comment like, what is this? What are we looking at here? And what does this make us feel? Because there's just so much like just every day in there that just like makes me question reality. I'm just like, is this real? Is this real? And of course, the answer is sort of. Um, so yeah, I absolutely encourage people to come to the Patreon and just become a free member, because for me, it's very overwhelming to interact on Instagram and on other channels. It's just, there's so much spam in the message box, and just in general, it's just a contentious environment. So Patreon, you can be there for free, and then that opens up a channel of communication there. There's messaging there that's way more calm and less crowded, and can always evolve into like email or whatever else. But also, I post plenty of stuff that goes to the free members, and it just is not a thing where I expect people to have to pay to to kind of be connected at all. It just makes it a lot easier, and it's a bit more personal and direct, and yeah, I'm always kind of hatching new things over there. So by all means, come on over. I've been doing a project this year, which I'm excited for it to be over because it's such a lift. But I've been doing a thing where I write about a song every day. So I do a
Wow.
song of the day, and just talk, whether it's the song that I just found that someone showed me that day, or if it's a song that I have a long history with. Either I just post it, I'm like, hey, so and so showed me this song, and I'll grab a couple lyrics, or it's a 10 paragraph essay about how this song changed my life and how it led to so many relationships. I mean, there are
Wow.
definitely entries on there that are very long and very detailed, because I've found that music for me is definitely, it is really, it's a portal for memory for me. I don't really have visual memory. So in a sense, music can really like just connect all of these stories in my mind, and my memory is really more feeling based than visual. And so for me, it's like I think of, when did I first hear this song, and then all of a sudden all of these histories come back and all of these
Mm.
feelings, and it's fascinating. So I've been exploring that. But yeah, I think I'll probably cut that at 365 when I'm done that, because that's
Yeah.
been a huge responsibility. But
That's a lot. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, every day I'm right at 200, I believe, right now. Hard to say. I mean, hard to believe. This year has flown by.
Yeah. Well, Colin, it's always such a gift to connect with you, and I so value our friendship and the many ways that we've been able to come together. And yeah, I really appreciate you bringing in this full circle of, you being on my podcast now. And I can't believe it's been 7 years since I was on your podcast, and how much has happened in our lives, both individually and collectively. And yeah, I would love if you ever bring this Instagram, commenting
Oh,
into fruition,
oh,
please
I'm
invite me
grabbing
because I
you.
would love to be a part
Oh
of
yes.
that.
Oh yes. It's happening. 100%. Yes.
Well, yeah, but thank you so much. And, I'll definitely put your Patreon as well as other ways that folks can connect with you in the description of the video or in the episode notes for the podcast. And just sending so much love to you and your, family. And I just, yeah, so appreciate you and cannot wait for future collaborations too.
Absolutely. Like 100% reverberated right back to you. And yeah, thank you for having me on. It's a total honor.
I'm really touched by so much of what Colin shared today. I really want to highlight a couple of the things that he spoke about, which feel really important to name as artists. One is this idea of really being in tune with our resistance and also with those parts of us that show up when it comes to art making and when needed to create technologies, tools, containers, however you want to see them to support you in that process. Knowing that sharing our art is such a vulnerable process, it does mean letting parts of ourselves be seen that maybe have never been, able to be shown to the light of day. And so we're bringing them out, we're excavating them, we're allowing them space to be held, to be witnessed. And sometimes we need a little bit of sunblock or we need a little bit of shade to be able to be out fully in the light. And so don't feel like that is a hindrance or that's something that makes you less of an artist. Know that whatever you need to allow some of these parts to feel safe enough to come out is totally valid. And also, I really appreciated Colin sharing about the burden of being known in a certain way as like a musician and then wanting to enter into another realm of visual art and the courage it takes to do that, the tenacity it takes to do that, and also when you arrive into that place and really work on your practice and on yourself, there can be a moment of just deep, expansive flow. And, as we see in his art, such prolific generativity can also emerge from that space. And I'm such a huge fan of his work. And we didn't even touch upon the many layers that he brings into his work, the way that he's helping us understand the convoluted media, internet, information age landscape that we're in, and also how there is something so important about art being a space of disorientation, confusion, and unfurling. And I see that so much in his work. And I obviously, as like a maximalist, as someone who loves to layer my work and smuggle things in and archive through my work, I really resonate so much with his visual practice. And I think that's why he and I have been so inspired by each other as artists, and also why we've been so supportive of each other's work. And so I want to just again remind you to go check out Colin's Patreon. It is going to be linked in the show notes. And I also shared with him off mic that him having a Patreon has also inspired me to start my own container, my own space to welcome you all into. I've created the Mutant Magic newsletter that is a free newsletter where I will be sharing updates and posts every once in a while. And it also has a membership space that you can enter if you want to have more access to behind the scenes process or tips and tricks to becoming an established artist or navigating gatekeeping, navigating MFA programs, grants, residencies, exhibition spaces. I'm going to really be as open and honest about my own journey within this private space that will be walled off, because I do feel like this is my container that I think I need to be able to show these certain parts of myself, knowing that they are behind a paywall where people who are committed and supportive enough will be able to access that. And another thing that I want to share is that in the paid memberships, I will also be editioning artworks that will be a limited run that will be available first to people who are paid members before they are released to the free folks on my newsletter and to the general public, if there are any left. So just excited for my own evolution, and just also so inspired by Colin's evolution as well, and wanted to tie those together. So please support your local artists. Know that we really value all of the care and support that you send our way, that it is so important for us to receive it, and that it is a huge part of why we do what we do. So never forget that your art is a spell, and that it will change your life and the world around us. Bye.